Hey there. Hello. Welcome to the Eurostep Podcast Network post game one podcast reaction to Milwaukee somehow, despite being huge underdogs, potentially getting swept, pretty definitively winning game one against the Boston Celtics in Boston, in the Garden of all places. I'm Ty Windisch, one of the hosts of the Eurostep Podcast, joined as always by my wonderful co-host Rohan Katti and the bold predictions king himself, Adam McGee, who absolutely nailed it of the Win in Six podcast and the Cruising for a Bruising podcast. Fellas, I mean, pretty obvious answer today, but how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. It was a game one for the Bucks, so that's already not in their favor. It was against the already champion Boston Celtics, again not in their favor. It was coming off some rest for the Bucks, again not in their favor. They won by double digits. How can you not be feeling good?
I feel great. It's so special to get to witness a Cinderella story like this. True Rocky stuff from the ultimate underdog, the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, who rose to the occasion and did exactly what I thought they would do. And I mean, we won't get too much into what everyone thinks, and there is a long way to go in this series. Honestly, nothing about what I thought of the series has changed. I think the Celtics are good. I just think the Bucks are better. But I am already just kind of reflecting on it is surprising that so many people just, forgot about the Bucks, what makes the Bucks, why their defense has allowed them to be not just, obviously this wasn't a great defensive season, but we're looking the whole Budenholzer era, what the kind of signature of this team has been. And the one thing that no one is talking about, Chris out, we've talked about it, but outside of that in a national perspective is this defense actually gets better. And while everyone's focusing on Boston's defense, the Bucks are gonna get the best of in that department. And guess what? They've got the best player on the planet.
Yeah, I think in some fairness to everyone, the idiots, but in fairness to them, not really idiots, but the Bucks had not shown that defensive gear really even in the playoffs that often. It was more fits and spurts, and I do think there was some fairness in questioning would they be able to do it over a whole game. I also think there's a lot of shiny new toy syndrome in NBA coverage of like, oh, the Celtics have been so good all year. They're the new toy. We don't care about the Bucks anymore. It helps that Boston is a much bigger media market and that Boston people saturate all major outlets. And Milwaukee, that is not true. That is not the case. But there's also that happens. The NBA loves the shiny new toy at all times possible.
Sometimes even more than their kids.
Correct. But
I thought I'd get one of those in later, but that was impressively fast off the mark.
That was good. But the defense
on that though, Ty, on the shiny new toy syndrome.
Sure.
I don't think the Bucks are ever the shiny new toy like that.
No, of course not. They're based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They're never shiny.
Exactly. So it's not even just that. It's not just that. And that is, it's like, what do the Bucks have to do to get the benefit of the doubt is a question you kind of are. What does Giannis have to do on that? That's a question you see a lot. But more than that, it's like, what do the Bucks have to do just to get people like consistently believing in them, excited by them? I saw a lot of, wow, Bud coached a really good game today. It's like, yeah, welcome. Like, we're not stuck in 2014. Like, things have changed on many, many fronts. And all of those things have pointed to the Bucks being a really, really formidable team. It is really bizarre that it takes games like this that people forget about it until it happens. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's the Bucks. So, shiny new toy syndrome, sure, but the Bucks never got that. Never like this. And the Celtics, you're right about the media thing, and then it's also the Celtics being the Celtics as like a franchise and the iconography of Boston green and white in the playoffs. I think there's a lot of people just buy into there. Didn't look all that different to previous Celtic teams I've seen today, though.
The real question, does it matter if no one ever believes in the Bucks as long as they keep... Yeah. So I almost kind of prefer it
just seems ridiculous, though.
Yeah, it does, but it's satisfying to see. Every single time it's satisfying to see.
I just think it's like it's bad for a neutral fan. It's bad. Some of the play-by-play and not by a bad crew in the first quarter on ABC like a lot of people pointed it out. It was like, oh, the Celtics defense is phenomenal. And the Bucks just keep, they keep turning over. That's all down to the Celtics defense. And flip things the other side, weren't hearing the same kind of conversation as forthcoming. And that's just, you're not serving the viewer. You're not making people smarter basketball fans. And you're not doing as much for the product. At this point, the casual sports fan should be viewing the Bucks as something much greater than they are. And for the NBA to be at the kind of the peak of the sporting conversation, you need people to know what Giannis is doing and what his team can do and be tuning in every time they take to the floor. So that's the only part of it that actually bothers me. It's fun when it comes out the other way, and it's like, oh, well, just going to prove them wrong over and over again. But ultimately, I think it's kind of bad for the game if people are going to keep pretending the Bucks aren't this absolute juggernaut.
Juggernaut's a fun word. I like that.
I don't know how else you could describe them. So I think the thing that makes them a juggernaut that we need to start with here is defense, because all night long, Milwaukee's defense absolutely suffocated the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum shoots 6 for 11. If you look up and down, every Celtic who played outside of garbage time literally had a tour line, stat line. Nobody had a shooting split that was not a potential tour date because they were not making enough shots. Tatum 6 for 11, Horford 4 for 11, Time Lord 3 for 6, Jaylen Brown 4 for 13, Marcus Smart 3 for 11, Derek White 2 for 6, Grant Williams 2 for 6, Peyton Pritchard, who really thinks he's Grayson Allen but really is not Grayson Allen, 2 for 8. No one had a good shooting game. I mean, the best one was Time Lord, who, again, made half his shots, but only took 6 shots. And the ones he made were the kind of vertical, lobs over Brook that we kind of expected to be there for Boston from time to time. Clearly not enough to swing the game. There was just nothing in the paint. And the Celtics had to rely on threes. They had some good looks, a lot of less good looks. And clearly Milwaukee just is not that afraid of Jaylen Brown, not afraid at all of Marcus Smart. Maybe not afraid enough of Derek White, who did shoot 9% last series and then made 2 of 3 threes. But I don't know. It didn't really cost them all that much. I mean, the Bucks are just saying this. We've seen them do this how many times? If you don't score at the rim, you won't win, no matter how well you shoot from everywhere else. The Celtics didn't really have a chance to win in this game, and that held true for Milwaukee, thanks to some of the best Brook Lopez stuff we've ever seen.
Yeah, the defense is a good call. Also, Adam, I know you tweeted about this, but I don't think the Celtics players really know much about the Bucks at all. Al Horford saying after the game, it was clearly a point of emphasis that Milwaukee wanted to attack the rim.
His quote, they were meeting our guys at the rim. It was clearly a point of emphasis. Yeah, every night, Al.
Yeah, you've played this team in the playoffs before. What are we doing here? This is what this team is built on. I don't know what people were expecting from this Bucks team. Maybe in fairness, Brook Lopez missed a lot of the regular season. They had to deviate from their normal base drop scheme, whatever. Okay, cool. Did you watch last series? Did you watch when Brook Lopez came back during the regular season? This is who the Bucks are. They are going to stifle you at the rim. They're going to stifle you inside the arc. They're going to let poor shooters take above the break threes, and then they're going to win. That's the Milwaukee Bucks.
Brook is just not someone you want to go and attack. And even less so that if you're focusing on trying to find a way around Brook, Giannis is going to come and just smother you from the weak side. Yeah. And you rightfully listed off, the Bucks weren't afraid of Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart. They were really just happy to let the Celtics do what they wanted. That was the complete opposite then on the other end of the floor, where those guys were afraid of driving to the rim. Jaylen Brown, his health may be a factor into that, didn't want to go to the rim. Jason Tatum didn't want to go to the rim. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to go either if I was playing the Bucks. But I do think for the Celtics point of view, that's just going to have to change. You're going to have to embrace that, know that you are going to find it tough there, but rely on, you'll get some points, you'll get some free throws, you'll get key Bucks defenders in foul trouble. Brook having one personal foul, you've got to attack him. You've got to attack him and make him beat you, which he is more than capable of doing with his defense. But if you're Boston, you cannot let Brook Lopez only have one personal foul, because essentially at a certain point, you're just so afraid of him and so reluctant to go into the paint. So it is interesting that we're back to seeing the Bucks drop, just befuddle a team like this and them absolutely dominate. It is a while since the Bucks have been able to play like this. That also probably helps their case. Certainly in Ime Udoka's time as a head coach of the Boston Celtics, this has not really been the Bucks that he will have seen. Not that he'll be oblivious to what the Bucks have been doing by any means, but it is a very different thing to what we've seen from the Bucks. And when they can do this, and we talked about this last season, the playoffs, it's when they have the drop as a reliable base scheme, they also get better at switching it up.
Yep.
And changing and giving you different options. They get so much more dialed in. It causes havoc with the opposing offense. And that is something that if I was the Celtics, or honestly beyond that, if I was any other team in the East looking on, any other team in the NBA, I would be noting and I'd be a little bit concerned about it, because if you allow the Bucks to bring drop back into play and are executing it as well as they are, the options open up for them, and it becomes a nightmare to get through this defense. Like, this is something we have seen. I know you mentioned, Ty, there have been times where it hasn't been there, and it certainly feels like a while, but this is a staple. Like, this is in large part how they won a championship last year. It's just those games got ugly, those series got ugly because the Bucks can go and they can play better defense than you. And then on the other end, they're gonna find ways to score because they've got Giannis. And it's been there for so long. It's the core part of their identity under Bud. And as for Brook, we've talked about him for years. He is the linchpin. He is the linchpin of the defense. Giannis is the defensive player of the year. That's the way that always kind of works its way out, that the credit goes to Giannis. But the guy who holds the defense together, who enables Giannis to be the best version of himself, is Brook Lopez. And with Brook, I mean, we should probably pause to be like, isn't it incredible that he looks as healthy as he does?
It's insane.
Like, that's a key thing here. And we certainly got on the Bucks' case about not telling anyone anything and their handling of his injury. The one thing I'll give them big props for is they dealt with the timeline well. They didn't rush him back. They made sure that he was in the right condition when he got back. Rohan, I don't want to drag too much of this back up.
What was the timeline?
I don't know, but whatever it was, it worked. I mean, some more transparency would have been good.
Who knows?
But
it could have been like 5 months ahead, like over the timeline. Who knows?
He came back, and I can't remember. It might have been like his first media availability when he returned to practice, and he said he feels like in the best shape of his life.
Yeah, he said
like,
better.
He feels better than before the injury.
Yeah,
he looks it. Like, that's real. That's not just something he was saying.
I think the time off was good. I mean, obviously dealing with the back injury and getting the surgery was bad, but I think the time off really did him some good. I mean, we've talked about the insane amount of miles on all the Bucks, and I think Brook being the oldest, the biggest of all of them, getting him a few months where he didn't have to go through and grind through all these games might be paying dividends. I want to go back to, the Celtics need to attack Brook to get some fouls. Do they have the personnel to successfully drive into Brook Lopez?
Probably not.
Is Jalen the closest, who doesn't look healthy and just doesn't really seem to be fitting into their offense all that cohesively right now? I think, is he their best attacker off the dribble? I know Tatum can do a lot, but I think actually attacking, getting into the rim, I feel like it's Jalen. But neither one of them looked nearly good enough. And then obviously you go down the list of the rest of the Celtics. No way in hell the rest of these guys are getting comfortable going right at Brook Lopez. Again, Time Lord can get
former Buck Luke Cornett. Do some damage.
Out of their eight Celtics played more than 5 minutes. 4 of them did not make it 2. Boston made 10 twos, which is the lowest the Celtics have ever made in a game. I think ever. It might be playoffs. I think ever, which is crazy. Ever. They've been around since like before a lot of the population was allowed to play in the league, and this is the lowest that they've ever made. I mean, they used to like use a slingshot to put the basketball in the hoop, and they've never made less twos than this. It's pretty crazy. This was defensive domination by Brook Lopez for sure.
Some guys, I'll be honest, I have no shame to say this. Some guys I literally did not know existed before this game ended up in the game for the Celtics. And I know we talked about
You're not grinding Malik Fitz tape?
Yeah,
I do
was like,
not
who is
know
that?
who Malik Fitz is. I do not know who Sam Hauser is.
Really?
Nick
Sam Hauser's
Stauskas, I could not
What's a
believe was
Marquette?
still in the league.
yeah, Hauser's a Marquette guy, so that's why.
Well,
Like Trey.
apologies to all of our Marquette listeners. Apologies to you, Rohan, but I do not know who Sam Hauser is. So, but that's also when you talk about, do they have the personnel to do it? One of the things we touched on before the series is, if the Celtics are forced to adjust and it doesn't work for them playing big like they want to play, their depth, their backcourt options are terrible. They don't have the players to pivot into going a different direction against this Bucks team. I mean, they've got one option, Derek White, and other than that, it is a tough scene. And even if he was brought in, it gets much trickier. In terms of the Horford and Williams situation, like, did they get what they wanted out of those guys? Maybe, although I don't really
Horford,
feel.
they did.
Yeah, they got a lot of fouls out of Horford.
I don't know. We'll get on to Giannis a little bit later. I personally think this Giannis game is better than people are generally giving it credit for. I've seen a lot of tweets of like, he didn't even play well. It wasn't a great game. And I quite strongly disagree with that because of how he managed to go about it. But in terms of getting so many looks at Horford and what Horford can do, Ty, you had spoken this already. It's like, yeah, Giannis figured this puzzle out years ago. And now Giannis is older, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's smarter, he's more skilled, he's more experienced. Al Horford is also older in a different way, where he's more experienced, but all of those other things are possibly trending downwards at this point. And it shows there. That's not even a knock on Horford. It's just like, really? Like, that's the answer for Giannis? I think they're going to have to look at alternatives to that. But once you're looking at alternatives to that, then, well, where does Horford fit? And where does Robert Williams fit? And where does your balance come for the Celtics? It was always going to be interesting who was going to win game one and force adjustments first. But I think it's a really tough spot for the Celtics, particularly with the concerns over Jaylen Brown and now what happened to Marcus Smart in this game too.
Yeah, I think the concern level for like Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, it's like, I don't know if they're going to necessarily like go away from Al Horford, even if like Giannis starts finishing better. I don't know if they're going to be like, oh, what do we do with him? They're still like you said, there's not really any other option that they can go to. They're not going to move him off of that assignment. They're probably just going to change things around Al, so they have to so the other Bucks have to adjust a little bit. But yeah,
What if could they start Al at the 5 and then bring in like Grant?
Yeah, and I think that's something worth exploring. I thought Grant was better than a lot of their other guys in terms of just giving really tough competitive looks, and it would make a lot of sense. What that's doing for your offense is tough. I know he's had a good shooting season and he was good from deep in this game. But again, it's not ideal. Like the kind of the composition of your lineup is not going to be anything close to a perfect solution to beating the Bucks or hanging with the Bucks.
Also, you would think that really would then tip rebounding further toward the Bucks. I mean, Robert Williams' energy on the boards was very noticeable when he played.
For sure. I just think there's when you look at you could stretch it to like, if you want to go 8-man rotations, which the Bucks are very content in being in an 8-man rotation given the options that are available. And the Celtics have no choice and should probably have been only 7 deep given the performance of players for them today. Bucks have the better guys. Like, they pretty simply have the better guys. And we touched on it ahead of the series. It's like, for as much as everyone was crowning the Celtics, the path to the Celtics winning this series has to go through Jason Tatum proving he is like a transcendent talent, one of the absolute top 3 best players in the NBA. And we've been waiting for years, and I'm still waiting. Like, he could be capable. Maybe that's yet to come, but it's not like, oh, if that comes, the Celtics will win this easy. No, the Celtics need that to happen, or they're going to lose this series. Like, that is essential. Jaylen Brown looking much better than he did today. That is essential for the Celtics to win this series, because Giannis is the best player in the series. And the gap, like, from what Tatum and Brown were doing to Drew, I mean, Drew was better than both of them today. So we're not even talking about a gap. Brook and the way he's contributing. This was not a great Bobby game, but it was a good Bobby game. Like, I think better is probably to come from him in the series. Grayson had another good game without having to really press in any way, go out of his way. I thought Pat was very solid. Javon was very solid. Like,
I think
Wes Matthews,
if you look at it right now, like if you line up 1 through 8 for both teams, at least in this game, like so far in this series, the Bucks won all 8 of the spots. Like the Bucks' first best player was better. Their second best player was better. You go down the list.
Yeah.
It's not, I think they had a clean sweep. And obviously if you keep doing that, it's going to be really hard to lose the series. Like that I think it's not going to stay that way, I don't think. I think we'll see games where guys like Jaylen Brown and Al Horford step up and are better than their Bucks counterparts. But for Boston, they need one of those games in a hurry. I mean, that's the issue of having home court and then losing game 1. There's an immense load of pressure going into game 2. When the roles were reversed and the Bucks lost that game 1 with home court against Boston, I remember going in, it was like, oh my God, like this game can be a disaster. You have a really bad shooting game. Your best player just can't get it together. Somebody gets in foul trouble. Like the margins then are like, that game can get really tight really fast. And it's like, you need to go take that one now if you're Boston. So I don't envy their position, but I'm glad they're in it.
Well, lose on Tuesday and they're fighting off the brooms.
Yeah.
Like, that's I'm not. I see your eyes.
Some people are already tweeting.
I'm not
people are already tweeting.
Too early. Way too early.
We won't even touch that one.
Yeah.
Rohan's on top of all the Twitter reaction tonight. But that's got to be like you're playing with that desperation. You cannot go back to the defending champions' home down to nothing if you're the Boston Celtics. Like it is over. Like. You're putting yourself in a position where if that happens, you're staring down the barrel of a gun. Nothing good is there for you. And like with Smart, for example, I don't know if we're going to kind of talk through the game in a kind of something closer to a play-by-play or a beat-by-beat. But like Smart's injury and what seemed like a dislocated shoulder, that was. Well, that's also true.
First time he went out, he came back in with 2 different things, and a different knee got hurt later when he went down when Drew was backing him up. The Celtics, somebody tweeted this and made it funnier than like a team getting banged up should be. But it's like they tried to match Giannis's physicality and learned real quick this is not like defending KD. This is a lot different than defending KD and the toll it takes when you're trying to match that guy. And I do want to disagree with something you said earlier, Adam, and I think this is kind of going into more of the blow-by-blow stuff. But I do think they were afraid of Tatum in particular. And I think this is like before the series, I kind of mentioned that it might be like a cutting the head off of the snake deal with the Celtics. Like if you can limit Tatum, I'm not sure they have
like
enough
Caruso.
Outside of
it's
him.
like Caruso in the last series.
Oh my goodness. But I think that was the approach the Bucks took though. Like I think Tatum saw extra bodies most of the time. He was the one that they would flock to and leave really anybody else on Boston's team open. And I think it worked, and they're going to keep doing that. I mean, I don't know when he made his first field goal. I think it was the second quarter. He made 2 shots from 2. He made 4 threes, and a couple of them were like falling away to the side over 2 guys. And I remember tweeting, like, if that's your offense, you'll never win a series. Like, you can't subsist on those kind of shots. So I think that's the plan is like, hey, we're going to make Tatum's life hell, and we're going to see if anybody else can step up enough to beat us. And game 1, it was like, no, if we can hold down Tatum, there's not enough else there.
I don't think that's fearing him, though. I think they treated him like the Celtics' best player, which he is. They game plan for him. I don't think they were being caught scrambling out of control for most of the game when the ball was swinging to him. There was no panic setting in because the ball is going to Jason Tatum. Ultimately, they are prepared to live with what Jason Tatum will do, but they also have a plan in place that's going to make it as difficult as possible for him. I mean, that's where I'm getting at with that. It's not like they're looking at the Celtics. They're like, yeah, we're just not going to bother double teaming anyone, and Bud's being like, you know what, let's go 10 deep. Like there is none of that. And it was interesting. I think there were some comments. It might have been from the broadcaster it came from actually, where Bud had talked before the game. And it's like, yeah, we're just straight to it. There is no messing around. It's best players on the court, exactly kind of how he would aim to manage his rotation if this series went to game 7. He was doing from game 1, which that is a development for the Bucks. And it just showed generally, whether you want to go to Bud, whether you want to go to individual players, one of these teams has been through it before and the other hasn't. Like, one of these teams has come through wars against the best teams in the league, and they have got to finish the season with a parade and standing on stage with the trophy in their hands, knowing what it takes to get there. The other hasn't. And this is, as we said, coming into the series, it's like, are the Celtics real? If the Celtics are real, this is it. You've got to win. Like, because if you're not going to beat the Bucks out Chris Middleton, you're not real. We can all go back to being like, this team is a way off. They need Jason Tatum to really jump to another level, Jaylen Brown, or they need to make some other pickups somewhere else to improve their roster. But if this version of the team is ready, like, this is your series to go and make a statement. It's there for you to make a statement if you want. And the Bucks just looked in a completely different league to them in game one. Doesn't mean it can't change, but that is not what, as a Boston fan or the Celtic staff, you would have wanted to see, because the score kind of flattered the Celtics a little bit, I felt. Overall, the Bucks had a lot more control over this. You mentioned before we started recording, Ty, you were briefly sweating at one point in the fourth quarter, as in, are the Bucks going to let this slip where it gets a little bit uncomfortable? I honestly wasn't, particularly once they got through the Giannis goes to the bench at the end of the third quarter with foul trouble. Once they came through that with flying colors, I was like, yeah, this is a pretty comfortable Bucks win. Like, it was a 12-point game with 90 seconds to go, and Udoka pulled his starters. That's pretty unusual in the playoffs in this scenario, where usually at that point you'd be like, okay, let's try to make a couple of quick trees, and then all of a sudden, there's some tension to this game. You never know what happens. I was a little bit surprised at that too. I thought that was interesting.
Just ask Doc Rivers about that.
That was, I think, the opposite.
The last great
thing.
coach the Boston Celtics have had, would one say?
Oh.
Brad Stevens, he saw enough.
That was perfect. Dude. Perfect. It was a big three by, I think it was Wes. Wes hit a three.
There was like 7 minutes.
It was shortly after. Yeah, it was Wes hit a three, and I think it was the play after Giannis's dunk off the backboard.
And just show Brad Stevens.
I think Brad Stevens went to that expansion team that Chris Mannix was starting all those years ago. I think Brad Stevens was like, yeah, I'll go coach these guys.
My goodness. Let's talk about Giannis, because I think it is worth discussing. I am one of the people that said I didn't think he had that good of a game. Yeah, I was. Oh, and I don't think he played bad. I'm not saying, he wasn't cold A money sign or anything. You're gonna keep this one clean for the kids.
Money sign?
Yeah, it's censor. Just.
It is a dollar sign, that we have different money in other countries.
That's true. Well, maybe I meant a different. Let's just move on. I'm not saying it was a bad Giannis game. I thought it was a fine Giannis game, and he clearly controlled the game and was the best player. Triple-double, 24 points. Yeah, 13 boards, 12 assists, but 5 turnovers, 4 personal fouls, 2 extremely bad personal fouls. I think that plays into me saying that too. But just, this is the last game this postseason probably where he only makes 2 shots at the rim, right? Like, he just didn't – they played him well. I mean, some credit to Boston.
Played him really well.
Horford did well. The help was good. They were bothering him when he drives. Still, though, he was getting to the rim. He wasn't getting any calls, which I think that may also change by game 2. He took 11 free throws, which seems fine, but there was a bunch of uncalled contact, especially earlier before the fourth quarter on Giannis. But he was getting to the rim and just the ankles were a little off, wasn't able to get it there. Again, great defense, but you just expect Giannis to make more of those. And I think, if he's shooting at his normal level, shooting isn't putting shot in rim. I thought his jumpers were pretty good in this game. Then, he's got 30, 35 points, something like that. And then it is like, the score isn't lying. It does end as a blowout. So it's not that he played bad. I'm not going to say that. But I do think we'll see better Giannis games than this, even though he was an absolute maestro in this game. And clearly, like, his whole presence is an issue for Boston.
Yeah, it's just an idea of he could have played better. He could have played better. In the sense, like, he could have finished more like you were saying, Ty. There were a couple of just dumb decisions, like that foul on Tatum to get his 4th.
Yeah, the one on the free throw was bad, but I kind of got it. The one on Tatum was terrible.
Like, what are you trying to accomplish there? I know you're going for a steal, obviously, but it's not going to work at that angle. But no, I agree with you, Ty. I don't think he played bad by any stretch. No, he was fantastic. It's just there's clear areas in which, like, okay, this could have gone way, way better for you. Like 9 of 25 shooting is putrid for Giannis, and just putrid in general, but just especially for a guy with the finishing ability of Giannis.
I agree he will play better. He will play better because he will score more points. He will shoot more efficiently. I don't know if we'll see too many more impressive performances. And the reason I say that is look at how he controlled this game, which one he controlled this game in spite of what we just said. Like he completely and utterly controlled this game. He did it in a way that I don't even know if last season he'd have been capable of doing. So
not for almost all of it.
Not for almost all of it. He certainly finals. We saw a version of him that, yeah, you know, I'm backing like the closeout version of Giannis to probably cope with something similar. But they defended him about as well as anyone has ever defended him.
Yep.
Genuinely, hats off. You know what? Doesn't matter. Because he's got the Dirk fadeaway jumper. He's stepping into mid-range jump shots about as confidently and as comfortably and with the kind of success that you'd expect of like the best mid-range shooters in the league. It's like you didn't need Chris Middleton out there tonight because Giannis was doing his best Chris Middleton impression at times. His passing was insane. His passing was completely insane. Some of the passes he was pulling off, his vision generally, the way his brain was so many steps ahead of anyone else on the court. I mean, that comes back to his pass to himself off the backboard, which I'm sure we'll talk about in some more detail too.
We got some great quotes from Drew after the game, by the way.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I look forward to that. I just think this is like, put this up there, frame it. This is the perfect, we've defended Giannis. Look how great we are. Let's pat ourselves on the back. We can't do better. And Giannis completely controlled the game and the Bucks won because now he is such a great passer that it doesn't matter anymore. You're gonna slow him down. You're gonna stop him at the rim. Cool. Doesn't matter. He's gonna find his teammates, and his teammates are good enough. Unlike if he was a Celtic player, he's not passing to Peyton Pritchard. I'm not making fun of the Celtics just for the sake of it. I'm being serious. He's not passing to Peyton Pritchard with the guys the Bucks have out there. And the jump shot, the thing that everyone kind of clobbered him over the head with for so long, it's there. It's reliable. Even the free throw shooting, he had one really bad empty trip. Take that out of it. He's 6 of 9, and that's at a level where we used him to look at. And he looked confident and comfortable at the line, in spite of the fact overall his numbers there aren't the best they can be. He will have better numbers, but here's the ultimate challenge for you. It's game 1. Your team's the underdog. It's all on you. And for the opposing team to defend them the way they did, and for Giannis to just still completely pull all the strings, push the Bucks to victory, like that is the ultimate. This is what I talked about before the series. It's like, yeah, if Giannis comes through this series, Giannis gets the Bucks to the finals. Like we've been talking all kinds of things for a long, long time. We've watched him a lot, but this just becomes the Giannis era. Like plain and simple, not just in the Bucks sense. It becomes undeniable. It's like LeBron when LeBron really began to take over the league with the Cavs. It's like Jordan before that. Not everyone, not even the very best players have that effect, get to have that moment. But you watch Giannis and it's undeniable at the moment. And the results are still there to back him up. And it's like all those people who picked against Giannis in this series, what are you doing? How are you doing that at this point? It's wild. So this to me is a game that I will remember for a long time and really sticks out to me as for what I would describe as a great Giannis game. It's not great in terms of the numbers or his production. We know he's done better. We know he has better. But this is everything there that even the very best players in the league, like if you put a game up that's this perfect against them for trying to amplify and force them into what their weaknesses are, they will flounder. Giannis did not flounder at all.
Yeah, I think, the reason I expect that he's going to have better games is I think, like, I don't think this was a playmaking performance that he can't replicate. I just think this is Giannis now. So I think if they defend him the same way, I think we'll see this many dimes going forward. Maybe the number doesn't get as high, maybe not as many shots go in, but I just think this is just where he's at now. Like I think he's going to continue to pass this well, and then the shot making comes back too, and you're really just left without any option. And I do want to say quickly, not moving on from Giannis yet, but your point about he's not passing to Peyton Pritchard, half of the equation on Giannis being able to pass and it being a winning strategy is the role players are really, really good. And to lose Chris Middleton and still go comfortably 8 deep. And I think one thing that stood out to me was not a single player for the Bucks was exposed defensively at any point in this game. And that's not something we would have expected a month ago, a year ago, whatever. But Grayson Allen,
I don't think Emi Udoka expected that. I don't know if you saw his pre-game quotes of, we expect there to be favorable matchups for us throughout the series.
They didn't find them.
Where were they?
Sorry, my guy. You haven't been watching the Bucks either, it seems. Like you and Al Horford should get in the film room together.
But all 8 of the guys who played, they were strong on both ends. Wes had a tough 3-point shooting game. You hope to see that bounce back. But I think everyone made plays. Everybody was reliable. And there's something to that in itself of just like we've never seen a Bucks team that's that comfortably deep. We've never been able to rely on shooting before. That was a little bit scary, right? Like, oh, they need to hit shots or what's going to happen? Giannis is going to be able to pass, but will they hit the shots? And, they weren't even like amazing across the board, but you just feel like, yeah, they're going to hit enough shots. I mean, this unit is ready for this, and that's what it is. And then you add that to this level of Giannis, and that's when you come away with like, what did they even shoot? What did the Bucks shot? 35%.
35.3%.
Yeah. Giannis shoots 9 for 25. The Bucks shoot 12 for 34 from deep. They start the game with a ton of turnovers. They did not turn the ball over more than Boston, but they did turn it over 13 times. And they win comfortably. And they're better. And they have the best player, and they have the best team. So it's a pretty exciting time to be a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks, I think.
I think they had 7 turnovers in the first 6 minutes, and then they had 6 the rest of the game. So that's pretty good. That's a nice improvement.
They just need to calm down and be like, okay, let's go win.
The Giannis dunk, the self alley-oop off the backboard. I tweeted this. I put it in our Eurostep group chat as well. It's immediately like put it up there with the best of his finals work. It's a top 3 Giannis play of all time for me. Just the way he has to think through that moment. And it's so rich with symbolism. It's so rich with all of the narratives coming into this series. Just the idea of, oh, Chris is out. No, Giannis doesn't have enough. Giannis doesn't have enough to beat the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Boston Celtics. And that's a scenario where he literally finds himself on an island for a second. He's like, oh, I've got no pass. What am I going to do? I'll just do it myself. I will just do it myself in the most impressive, most emphatic way possible. It is just a top tier Giannis play. As I said earlier, just for one, the creativity, the imagination, but the execution and what it means. And he, even coming back down the court, you could see himself. He enjoyed that one. He was maybe a little bit impressed with it too. But that's also that's a play with some real obvious swagger. And it's not necessarily something Giannis would always do in like a game 1 before. But I think under the circumstances, it was all the more special than just what it was as an amazing basketball play in its own right.
Am I a hater?
Well, you didn't like it?
I loved it. I just don't think it's like top 5.
No, that's my personal preference. I don't.
Okay.
Listen, Giannis has a pretty good back
a lot
catalog,
of times before.
Yeah, but I don't think he's done it in quite this situation.
I think in this game, the symbolism of it was perfect because it is Giannis. It's so Giannis to have this impenetrable-ish defense put in front of you. And it's just like he never stops. He finds a way, right? Like he always finds somehow, some way. It's his whole life story is finding somehow, some way to get it done.
And he will beat you on. He'll beat you on his own if he has to. He will beat you on his own. Like that's. Oh, you think you're playing the Bucks? No, you're playing Giannis and the Bucks, and that is just an incredibly difficult task for any team. You're free, Rohan, to not think it's anywhere near that. It doesn't have to be in your top 100, but as a moment, I didn't say it's not in your top 100. It might not be. I don't know. You could tell us, but that for me, I was like, okay, just at the point where he's the best player in the league. They're the champions. Everyone's doubting them. Chris is down. You're on the road in a game one in a series that everyone is saying you're not going to win. And you're in a good position. And how do you like put the hammer down? How do you not let Boston breathe? There's a play. Again, they would feel like, oh, done a good job. What's he going to do? Where's he going to go? And it epitomizes Giannis. It epitomizes this Bucks team with him as their leader. So I'm adding tons of context, tons of symbolism, and I'm getting swept up in it because that's the romance of sport that I like. But that's why, for me, straight away, like that got a bigger reaction out of me than any play the Bucks have made this season. Not even close.
Yeah, I think you're higher on it than even I am, but that's closer
fine.
to you. That's totally fine. Here's just a quote from Bucks people. No one said you're hating.
Ron's a hater. All the people
hater.
are going to say Ron's a hater.
Same way Adam is a Bobby Portis hater. Rohan is a...
the label Giannis hater. Yeah, it's never going to leave you now, the label, Ron.
Here's what Bud said. That's just pure talent, just pure instinct. He's a great player. He does things that are unique and special and timely. That's one of those plays where you're just happy he's on our side. It's got to be the most Bud has said about a single play in quite some time. And then Drew said, I can't do that. I wouldn't even think about trying it. This is all according to Eric Name. And then Drew, according to Eric, continued on about it and told us he might be able to do that self alley-oop on an 8-foot hoop.
What about Brook mic'd up saying, put that on film, put that on film? Was he talking to the Celtics, who clearly haven't been watching the film? Was that?
I mean, maybe. I think he was, right?
It seemed that way.
It sure did. Rohan, what should we talk about next from this game?
Let's talk about the role players.
Yeah.
I know we touched on them, but just incredible performances all around. Like Javon Carter, incredible. Grayson Allen, incredible. Also, I didn't tweet this out. I don't know why I did. Grayson Allen picking up guys full court is one of the funniest things I've ever seen on a basketball court, ever. Because one, why? I mean, I understand why.
Javon's influence.
It's not just, that's just the game plan. They just full court press the entire game now. That's just what the Bucks do.
I think especially against this matchup, because they don't respect Boston's ball handlers, and I probably wouldn't either. Yeah, there's no Chris Paul on the other side.
It's just so funny seeing Grayson Allen fighting for his life on every single time. Every single time someone brings the ball up the court, you can just see the frenzy in his eyes, like the concentration on his face. It is hilarious, but he also did a great job. He did not get lost. He did not get beat. He was disciplined. He was stout, and he did a great job. So I think not just Grayson Allen, but Javon Carter, Pat Connaughton, Wes Matthews is incredible on the defensive end. The way he was able to lock up Tatum at points was just good luck for any NBA player that has to go up against a locked-in Wes Matthews. But just all around, they were all firing on all cylinders, offensively, defensively. You couldn't have asked for a better performance from the rest of the guys.
The Celtics fans haven't been paying attention either. They haven't been watching film because they booed Grayson when he came into the game.
So silly.
Like, if you're paying attention, I think opposing teams have got to start giving Grayson a standing ovation when he comes into the game and just see how he reacts. He doesn't throw him off.
It'd be Boston.
This is true.
Ron's on fire. I thought Grayson and Pat defensively had some of their best games I've ever seen. Pat drew 2 different offensive fouls, just really defended quite well the whole game. Did end up with 8 fouls, but of his own. But also 2 for 4 from deep, 3 for 6 from the field. Grayson 3 for 6 from deep, 4 for 8 from the field.
Did you say he had 8 fouls?
Yeah, I thought you said that too.
4. Sorry. He had 8 points. I must have gotten mixed.
I would be really impressed if he got 8 fouls.
No, only Devin Booker can do that.
That's true.
But it was a really, really strong...
That would be the hometown whistle. That would, if he got 8 fouls.
That's true. But I thought it was cool, though, that we think we agree that all the role players played well. But nobody shot unseasonably well. Nobody on the Bucks shot above 50% from 3 except for Drew Holiday, who was 3 for 5. Drew was tremendous, I thought, all game 2. His 2s weren't falling. He ends up shooting 8 for 20. But I thought it was a really good locked-in Drew game. He got whistled for some awful fouls. Like, he's literally moving his feet, staying in front of a guy. And I think 2 different times he got fouled for that, which I thought pretty Boston-friendly whistle all along. Although they let the players play for long stretches of the game, which definitely played into the Bucks' hands because they're clearly the more physical team. But Bobby Portis, 2 for 7 from deep, still found ways to contribute, still grabbed 11 rebounds. One of 4 Bucks who grabbed at least 10 rebounds in this game. I just thought it was great. I thought everyone showed up, everyone did what they had to do, and it doesn't feel like really anybody outside of, I guess, Drew hitting. I mean, it's 3 for 5. It's not a crazy game. I didn't think
the outlier shooting game, Ty, is Wes 1 of 6 from deep, because that's not going to happen again. He'll shoot better.
Yeah, or less, but hopefully better.
He did try to not shoot a couple of times, though.
It was bad.
Yes,
he needs to keep shooting. He needs to keep shooting. Unless he can get all the way to the rim. If he can get to the rim, he's actually had some good takes, but he needs to stop with these like in between, too many side steps, like shoot, drive, or pass.
He's become really fond of the sidestep, and you're like, why? Just catch and shoot, my guy. Just like, you're in the corner. Giannis has put one out to you. You're completely wide open. And he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna wait a second and then sidestep. It's okay. Why? So, I mean, if on that we want to talk about some of the things, Grayson actually early, and maybe Pat as well, like late first quarter into the second quarter, kind of when all those guys were in the game for, well, not Wes, obviously, but when the other two were in the game for the first time, there was a little bit more hesitation from role players on letting fly. And if you just get rid of that from the jump, the Bucks are going to be all the better for it. The one thing that for me, I think is a concern is the lack of ball handling. We knew this was going to be something with Chris out. When Drew in the first quarter, second quarter, somewhere around that, when he had to go to the bench because of some pretty dubious foul trouble, it got ugly because you're getting Grayson take the ball up, you're getting Javon Carter, and it didn't look comfortable at all. The Bucks clearly didn't want Giannis to be walled off and the possessions kind of going dead from the jump. They wanted to get him the ball in motion more than anything, and that over the course of the game, I think, worked pretty well. It allowed him to make a lot of his passes, if nothing else. But it's something that they'll have to be very, very careful with. And honestly, not that we know exactly how far away George Hill is, but if George was to come back, Bucks wouldn't need him to do much more other than give solid defense and, some steady ball handling if needed. If Drew is off the floor, that would be a big boost, a big, big boost. Because otherwise, out of those kind of guys, I was looking at, I was thinking, I don't know, like maybe I'd trust Pat most to bring the ball up the floor in some of those moments. That's not a great spot. But the one thing with this series, and I think it was you, Ron, who touched on it a couple of minutes ago, like that's reflective of the Celtics too. The Celtics do not have traditional lead ball handlers. They do not have point guards. And that puts them in a tough spot as well. And they're kind of there throughout the game, where the Bucks at least are only there if Drew has to come off the floor.
I do think there was one possession that illustrated what they could do in those spots. And I trust Javon to bring the ball up the floor. I just think it's executing too much offense after that is what you don't want. But they did a play, I want to say it was the third quarter, but it might have been the second quarter. It was Drew, but it didn't have to be Drew. So Drew brings the ball up, and then it flows to Grayson, who's cutting through the middle of the floor up to the top of the key. And then it immediately flowed. I think flowed. Flew.
Definitely not flued.
Flewed. And then it flewed into Brook setting a screen. So it was like a Grayson Brook pick and roll, which I always like. They should use more of those anyway to get Brook rolling, because especially against Boston, nobody's getting up there with him. And it didn't really work that well, but then it was like a kick out to Drew, who was then working with an advantage. Like more stuff like that, I think could help you get through. I mean, again, it's like 3 minutes, if that, less. Like you just need a couple good plays, generate a couple good shots. I would like to see, though, more of like Grayson Brook pick and roll if Drew is off the floor and Giannis is either also off the floor or just kind of resting, and you don't want to go to him every single possession. I think that intrigues me a little bit, and you're just asking less if it's pick and roll versus break down a defense by yourself or whatever else it may be. But yeah, I do think that's, if you're looking at things that we didn't love, just the non-Giannis minutes in general were bad. The Bucks got outscored by a lot. Drew making more of those twos would help, but I think they're going to need to find some more comfortable stuff that they can go to just to generate okay offense in those spots. Let the defense, again, kind of save the day, and they were good enough the last 3:37 of the third quarter when Giannis exited with the foul trouble. They won those 3.5 minutes, so again, that was great without Giannis, but on the whole, they were not all that good without him.
I think when Giannis is off the court as well, there is room to make either both or either or of Brook and Bobby more featured parts of your offense too, particularly with the Celtics being out there with your two bigs. Make them work because they're focusing on having those kind of guys out there for very different reasons. The focus is Giannis, in a matchup sense. Obviously, it's core to what they've been doing all year. But with Brook and Bobby and what they can do offensively, I think there is some joy to be had for the Bucks there if they're prepared to lean into that and exploit it. Particularly, I really do think this has all the potential to be a big Bobby series, and this was a solid game without him doing a whole lot. I mean, 6 of 12 from the field, 15 points, 11 rebounds. That's great. 2 of 7 from deep. That really is on the low end for Bobby. And I think over the course of the series, he could make the Celtics pay in some of these games. He could single-handedly be a guy who drives the Bucks to some wins or maybe some big wins even. So the way that the Bucks use Bobby and Brook offensively, I do think that's going to be something interesting to watch as the series goes on.
We know Bobby's always going to shoot. He's going to go out there. He's going to take some shots. I need Brook to take more shots, man. Like, there were a lot of times when they were just switching guards on him. Abuse that. Like, take advantage of that. Take advantage of any mismatch that you have. So just, I don't know. They just need to let him mash more.
I agree. The most frustrating game of the play of the game for me was when Pat, I think it was, they got fast PP switched on to Brook, and it looked like Pat was going to get that.
They got whom?
Peyton Pritchard. We've been over this. They call him fast PP. I am going to use it to denigrate him as long as possible. Celtics fans enabled this to happen. If you want to call a guy fast PP in all seriousness, that's on you.
So is this like a weird Celtics Twitter thing? Or is this
so?
Okay, well, because you said they call him, I thought like Udoka's starting off like post-game interviews, being like, great game from fast PP. So this is more of a Twitter thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Now we'll have to do some digging to see if...
I don't know if we do. Does it require
Celtics
digging?
Blog refers to him as fast PP. I feel like that's relatively mainstream for Celtics media.
Sure.
Wow.
Anyway, fast PP was trying to guard Brook Lopez in the post, and Pat was like going to get the ball to him, and he had Smart on him then, and he just like did a really dumb like leading into him, let Smart flop, and of course Doris Burke is like, look at the tenacity. This is why he was defensive. Yeah, because he falls over tactically. That's why he was defensive player of the year.
And she added that. She was describing all the elements, and she's like, and he sells the contact at the end. I'm like,
that's all he did.
Sure, that's not key to being defensive player of the year.
Adam Silver, fix it. But anyway, but Pat
fast PP though. Minus 17 in 11 minutes.
Yeah, he took 4 of their first 5 shots, and it was at the third quarter at all threes.
Fourth.
Missed all
it was
of them.
The fourth quarter.
Why is a guy who played 11 minutes in the game getting 4 shots to start the fourth quarter?
Celtics were shipping water quick with fast PP out there.
But no, Brook had him on him, and they just didn't get him the ball in time, and it's like that should be 2 easy points, right? And it's just like that needs to be more of an emphasis for sure, especially if they do at some point scale down the starting 5 or just the rotation minutes in general. And it's like if Horford is the Celtics' lone true big, and he's guarding Giannis, and you have Brook out there, well, it's time to get Brook involved, man, because nobody else on that team, if Robert Williams is not on the floor, is going to hang with him in the paint. Like, no shot. I don't care how scrappy Marcus Smart is, who probably wouldn't be on him in that situation anyway. Like, Brook is just going to say, okay, and do that little push thing right over his head. Like, he doesn't need to knock a guy over. If he gets that clear look at the basket, that's easy for Brook. So I agree, Rohan. I would like to see more Brook, and I know Adam agrees with this too, and more Bobby, who I did think there were some big shots Bobby hit despite not having a great all-around game, some big moments where his ability to just hit a shot over anybody is really nice for the Bucks, and it can be a really nice valve for them. And, the 3 in transition was great. He had a couple of 2s earlier that just felt like nice, important shots just to kind of deaden a run a little bit, right? Like, he doesn't even need to get an advantage. He just makes a shot, and then there goes your run if you're the Celtics.
I agree. I just think Brook is an interesting swing piece in the series because of what the Celtics are doing and what their adjustments may be or how they feel like they may have to change it up. They're in a tough spot. I'm really curious to see how, like, if we just take, okay, the shoulder element, we all saw Marcus Smart dislocated his shoulder. Pop back in, he comes out and he plays. That's fine with a lot of adrenaline. I wonder how that feels tomorrow. I wonder how that feels on Tuesday. I wonder how he is for the rest of the series. Because even we saw him come out and play, and he was playing like Marcus Smart until then. He was getting a little physical, and you could see it bothering him again.
Well, yeah, he had to come out of the game. He was on the exercise bike for a while because he has some quad and knee stuff, too, he's dealing with.
Like, that's, again, a player, like, if his versatility isn't there defensively to allow the Celtics to make this weird, they can't just kind of match up kind of like for like with the Bucks and get the better of this. And also, I don't know what you guys thought. I was a little bit surprised, and it's not even something I think we really talked about. I mean, it's not like it was off the table, but Giannis and Jalen being the matchup on both sides of the ball, I thought was interesting. Particularly from a Celtics perspective, that they're like, yeah, Jalen, we know your hamstrings have been a problem and you're kind of like doubtful to even be playing in the series, but you've got the Giannis assignment. That's interesting. He also wasn't the guy that just I would have put there as going to bother Giannis the most. So to come out of the gate and be like, oh, really? They're giving Jaylen Brown all this time on Giannis, I thought was quite a decision.
I think it was a decision Giannis liked.
Yeah.
That's.
But that's even with the passing, right? When we talked about, it's like Jaylen Brown isn't big enough to even cut off some of those angles. Like Giannis was having a lot of fun with the passes over the head. He had one of the most ridiculous passes I've ever seen him make, which was when he was on the way up to the rim and he was like, oh no, I'm about to lose the ball here. And he just kind of caught it and flung it round himself. And I think it was Paddy found with it. And he's like, what? How is that even possible? That's not a pass that anyone else in the league is making. Like, everyone talks so much about the type of passes Jokic makes. Jokic is never moving at the speed Giannis is with his limbs extended, where you have to worry about, how do I find some control and wrap this pass around? So was the image of Jokic moving like Giannis? Did that feel wrong? Yeah. But like their passes that literally no other player in the league can make or even has to worry about trying to make. But that's where I think Brown is an interesting choice there, because even if he does what you want him to do to stop Giannis from scoring, or if he does it with the assistance of help, you're not cutting off any of the passing options for Giannis by having a smaller guy on him.
Yeah. I don't know. That was very, very sound analysis. I agree.
On the Celtics injury front, I was worried that they had lost Time Lord for the rest of the series, but thankfully it appears that it was just some damage to the family jewels there.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was in the moments, for sure.
Well, I was worried it was like an abdominal thing, like, you know, they can whatever George Hill is dealing with, but then when he was back
those are back spasms.
What is George Hill dealing with? That's a great question. Is it his neck? Thing. Is it abdominal? Is it
I was going to say,
spasms?
don't go neck back. That's dangerous. Rohan's going to get involved. That's a dangerous terminology to go to. I guess so. Any last thoughts about this game? I mean, obviously it was a great start. I expect a much better performance from Boston in Game 2, but I don't know how strongly I expect it. Yeah.
I expect the Bucks to be better.
Same.
But you also expect the Celtics to be better, or no?
I think the Celtics will be a bit the same. Like, this is not a bit. I'm not looking to slander him. Until Jason Tatum proves otherwise, I expect the Celtics to be the same. Like, if the Celtics are to be better, if the Celtics are to beat the Bucks in this series, it's all there for them. They can do it. Everyone says they can do it.
I don't think it's there for them.
Well, it's there for them in terms of Middleton is out. Like, it's there for them as much as it's ever going to be.
Okay,
so
this is their best opportunity.
You're never going to get a chance like this in Giannis's prime years. It's like you're building a team. You're in the Eastern Conference. This is a situation you're dreaming of. Like, that goes for the Celtics, that goes for the Heat, and that goes for the Sixers.
I think it goes for the Celtics most, because those two teams are also beat to hell.
That's true.
If you're the Celtics, you come into this series, Lowry's not playing, Jimmy's beat up, Embiid is out for at least half of that series with a broken face, somehow potentially coming back for Game 3, which is insanity. and Chris Middleton is out. Like, this is the prime Celtics opportunity right now. It's not a great start to that opportunity.
But even with that, if you look at Jalen's obviously playing hurt. I mean, yeah, we'll do the whole cliche that this time of year, everyone's got some kind of injury. But Jalen's carrying something a little bit more than most guys, I think.
Yeah.
And then you have the damage that Marcus Smart and Robert Williams took in this game. Like, the Celtics might be too far behind some of those other teams soon enough. But you come into this series and your opportunity is there. Jason Tatum is your best player. I'm just going to keep saying it. He's got to go and do the thing. If he can't do it, Celtics have no chance. And that's not even, it's not a reflection on the construction of the roster, a whole bunch of things. Like, this is, we've been through this with Giannis, when Giannis had achieved much more, and the demands on him to deliver and the scrutiny he was under was colossal. I don't feel like that's the same on Tatum. We can have the conversation at another time about why that is. I've got some theories, but it's got to be about him. The same way as the Bucks were never going to become NBA champions unless Giannis all of a sudden went, yeah, I'm grabbing this with both hands. I'm closing out with a 50 piece if that's what it takes. The Celtics aren't going to do it either. They're not going to get past the Bucks if you don't have Jason Tatum do that. So that's what I'm waiting for. And honestly, right now, even if he did that,
I was going to say, I don't know if it's
he's going to need the
anyway.
support. He's going to need Jaylen Brown to look a lot healthier. He's going to need Smart to be healthy and have some of his weird outlier games that maybe aren't even outliers against the Bucks, because he seems to do it all the time. But they kind of need everything. They need to throw everything at the Bucks. And there was a lot of assumption that they would get that, and they didn't in game one. So they have to in game two. Again, if they lose, you're in an 0-2 hole and you're going to face the defending champions on their own floor. Like, it's time to step up. If you're real, the Celtics have got to do it right now. And I don't know. They need to prove that. Again, I'm not trying to, this is not a bit. I've been very dismissive of a lot of Bucks opponents over the years. I'm not really doing that with the Celtics. It's just a case of, okay, well, maybe they are as great as everyone says. This is when you prove it. So you've got to go and do it. They did in the game one.
The real question is if they're down 0-2 going back to Fiserv, is Ty going to be at any of the games?
No, Ty's never allowed at a Bucks playoff game again. I'm sorry, Ty.
What?
But
I think that's
these are the rules.
I think I can go in the third round. It worked out really well last time.
They lost that game.
And then what happened?
That's not it working out well.
I think if I go to one playoff game and they win a championship, that's pretty good. I think we'll take that.
And also, to your point, Adam, I think the Celtics do have plenty of time. I mean, Tatum's only 19. They got plenty of time.
Yeah, that's why he's not seeing this criticism. You never expect this much from a 19-year-old. No, I do think the Celtics need to figure out a lot of really tough questions, and I don't know what the answers are going to be for them. I think something that was underrated in general is just like, outside of Tatum, there's really just not enough offensive firepower here to go toe-to-toe with a team like the Bucks. And obviously Jalen being much better helps. But even after that, it's like, then it's either Horford or Smart is their third best offensive player. Okay. I mean, that's not ideal, I think, especially against a defense like Milwaukee.
Particularly when your 6th, 7th, and 8th guys look like they do. It's like, it's not like you've got this consistent level, which is what the Bucks have. The Bucks actually have the top end talent, and they have the next wave of guys playing to a level. Celtics don't have it.
And I don't, again, we're not talking brooms or anything like that here. It's game one. It's very early in the series, and I think we're going to see better from Boston. But, it gets real dicey here if they can't win game two. And I do expect the Bucks are all business now. And them starting a series like this is huge. This is not something that we're used to seeing or we expected. We talked in our last pregame. No, well, we talked on our last pregame pod.
But one of us expected this.
Well, fair. Yeah, it's okay.
Check out the bold predictions video on YouTube.
Yeah, we're over 700 subs now, 300-ish more until we can secure the bag on YouTube. But you did. I'll give you credit. But it was always the thing, right? The Bucks adjust well. So if the series starts out well for the Celtics, that's fine. The Bucks will figure it out. They always do. If it starts well for the Bucks, good luck. I wouldn't expect them to take the foot off the pedal. I think this is serious. I don't think they're saying, oh, we stole one in Boston. Now we can go back to Milwaukee and just win the home games. I think the Bucks are going to come out here and say, we're not done winning in Boston. And whether they get that win or not remains to be seen. but I think the Celtics are going to have to win it. I don't think the Bucks are going to have, maybe I'm just thinking along these lines, watching Memphis and Minnesota be unserious back and forth for a whole series. But I don't think the Bucks are just going to be like, okay, we got our one win in Boston. Like this, the Celtics are going to have to go out and just play way better. And, that might not even be enough if they do it.
The Bucks are sickos. The Bucks are sickos. They want to win everything.
Yeah.
One other under discussed or maybe even undiscussed thing going into the series, because again, it's fueled by perceptions that are just kind of outdated at this point. It's the coaching. This is Udoka's second playoff series as a head coach. And it's like, oh, you can point to his pedigree all you want. Guess whose pedigree that also is? It's Bud's. And look at how long it took for Bud to figure a lot of that stuff out. Like, it's not easy, and it's not a case of even the best assistants. They just go in, they figure it out, they're in a good job, and oh, look, I've won a championship. It doesn't always work like that. There is something to head coaches picking up experience, guys going through kind of the wars year in, year out with their coach, having a level of trust, then having the kind of relationships where internally the coach can be pulled up on things he can pick out. Like, the Bucks are just so far along down that road. One thing that ESPN, or ABC, I should say in this case, highlighted early in the game was Bud absolutely chewing Drew out in the first quarter. It's like that is kind of just an example of the place the Bucks are at. They're in a position where the relationship between players and coach are so well established, the level of trust, the level of understanding. They've seen it all go as well as it can be, and they've seen it all go just about as poorly as it can be in the bubble. Like, this is part of the head coaching journey. It's part of picking up your experience and getting to the place where you really are among the very, very best in the league. Bud is there. It's like there's still this desire for people to be like, oh, Bud. It's like, yeah, Bud's got himself a ring, and he might be about to get himself a second ring under more difficult circumstances. So this is a series where Ime Udoka is a really, really good coach. I've full confidence he'll be one of the best coaches in the NBA for a long time. He hasn't been around this block in that chair, feeling the pressure like he's going to feel it right now. Bud has. Look at Bud's hairline. Bud has felt a lot of pressure in recent years. Bud's hair is getting away from him today. I was like, oh God, the Bucks they've really done it to Bud. But as I said, Bud has got the hardware in exchange for that. So it's a deal that I'm sure he's pretty happy with.
That was a bar. That entire thing was just a bar.
Thanks, Rohan.
Yeah,
Ty, you're
muted.
Thanks, guys. I do think it was a Bud masterclass. Like, I don't think there's much that you could point out that I didn't really agree with. And I think just all along, the rotation has been great. We're not seeing like this dalliance with, let's try out Jordan Wara, let's get Serge Ibaka some minutes. No, like, the guys who have played well consistently all year are playing. The other guys are not playing to start a series. And that's, we've looked for this before and not seen it. It helps, I think, that they're deeper. But I remember this kind of faux to not faux concern of, are they too deep? Is this going to be bad? No, it turns out it's good. It turns out Bud just wants to have 8 guys who can play. And when he does, he will play those 8 guys. And that's that. He's not going to play 11 guys because he has 8 good guys and 3 guys who are good sometimes. He's just going to play the good ones. And it turns out that works out pretty well for the Bucks.
And if you lose Chris Middleton and George Hill, you've still got 8 good guys.
Crazy roster. Insane
Which is
roster.
what the Celtics, for example, do not have. Is they don't have the 8 guys without the injury problems. Like, to have lost an all-star, like an all-star starter, not a starter in the all-star game, starter for the Bucks, who happens to be an all-star, although whether he deserved it. Yeah, that's very true. And George Hill, a player who, like, could easily, I don't think his play is necessarily matched up to it this year, but based on the function he fits, the style player he is, like, he is 6-man type material still for Bud when he's healthy.
He could be a starter in this league. Easily.
If he was on the Boston Celtics,
no,
they might be forced into some adjustments where they'd be looking, when we talk about the lack of options they have in their backcourt,
I think he would be their 6th man. I do not think he would start for any team.
Is that because of age or because of ability?
Ability.
I'm saying he would be their 6th man, but going into the next game, or the game after that, if you need to change things up from your Horford, Robert Williams front court, and you need to go a little bit smaller, like, oh, he'd be in with a chance of starting, and you'd feel good about it. It's like we felt good at different times. I don't know if this year we'd feel good about it because the Bucks have better options. But in his previous stint, absolutely, George got plenty of starts.
Oh, yeah.
And you would have felt good about it at any point. Like, that's the level of player he is. It does speak to the Bucks' depth, which it's holding up unbelievably well. And that's without even Luka properly working his way into the rotation yet.
Sir, stop.
He's ruining Luka minutes.
I don't know what he thinks he is, sir. He's like doing like Jokic level stuff, except the results
sweeping
are not.
hooks and just I don't know.
Someone needs to just hand Serge a note and be like, a note that reads, "It's Luka time," in those minutes, so he gets the message. It's tough.
It is tough indeed.
I think we're not getting good, though.
Yeah, we're not getting prime Thanasis time though.
They're still fine.
We got a minute 12 with Thanasis in the series. All right, that's pretty good.
Wasn't Ty talking about like a 55 second over under?
Really
there
early.
You go.
The overcast really early on that one.
Just like the over on Jordan's ball prediction, tough for him, but the Bucks did score 101 points.
Well, we'll see. Maybe he can at least hit on Celtics not hitting 100 points. That would still feel good, I think.
I think that would feel pretty good, all right.
I think my bold prediction is aging like milk because I just don't think the series is going to change enough for there to be a defining change to be made. Rohan, why are you confused? Milk ages badly. It sours in like 3 days.
I think it's the way you said milk.
Oh, yeah.
Caught me off guard too.
Milk.
We've been over this a couple times on the pod. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we have. I just like to point it out every time.
Fair.
My prediction of Marcus Smart getting exposed, unfortunately, might not happen because he unfortunately might be hurt, but who knows? Get well soon, Marcus. But just overall, I think we all are feeling pretty good about this series, right? After game one.
Well, I don't feel good about my Bucks in 6 prediction, but it's for a good reason. So,
yeah, might be. What do you want to update your prediction?
No, not yet.
No. I'm not also yet. Bucks and 6, not feeling great about it, but let's.
I said 7.
I would update that by at least a game. Yeah, but
okay, I'll change it to 6 for now.
It's for the culture.
For now. Yep, it's for the culture always. Shout out to Ty for getting that clip.
Shout out to Brandon Jennings, who was the real motor behind that one.
Shout out to Ty.
I was giving you some credit. I appreciate
it.
Okay. A humble man, said no one about Ty Windisch.
That's very true.
And on that note, let's wrap this up. Say thank you for listening to this episode here on the Eurostep Podcast Network. If you did enjoy, make sure you're subscribed on your podcast platform of choice. Leave a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. Subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to the Substack, subscribe to the YouTube again on different accounts. Again, we're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Leave a like. I don't think I've said that.
Hit the bell. You know what's crazy? In our advanced analytics, people have hit the bell for us, the notification bell on our YouTube.
Oh, let's go. Keep hitting those bells, cool.
Hit the bell. It makes us feel good.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. This fell off the rails.
You've gspnstore.com if you want to celebrate with some Bucks merch, some Brewers merch either. A lot of you have. Special shout out because our opening launch sale did just wrap up last night. Massive thanks to all of you who were quick out of the gate when we launched the store and have been rushing to support us. It's great to see the take about it, but it's been even better to see like pictures from Bucks games, from Bucks watch parties, from Brewers games, like getting in the stadiums, in the arenas with people repping our podcasts. It's very, very cool. So yeah, continue to do that. If you haven't picked something up yet, gspnstore.com. If you have, May is a new month. There may well be some new designs coming in the weeks ahead. So keep an eye out. There's some good stuff coming.
Yeah, make sure you check that out, gspnstore.com. It's great stuff. It is great stuff. And I will say there might be some fun stuff, like you said, Adam. And I'm not going to say much more. I'm not going to say it. Again, this really fell off the rails. Good pod random. Bye.